So when you're so confidence, clarity, creativity really was okay, obvious for me in that aspect, but compassion was not,
Mm.
because I think that compassion is a very mature and complex feeling, and most people will not think about business and compassion in one sentence. So I know if you would say empathy, but compassion is much deeper than empathy. You need to
And
really feel that.
yeah, and I'm of course speaking, and I don't know if the audience knows this, but you're in Israel and I'm in North America, and so this is one of the beautiful things about collaborating and stuff and sharing ideas. Well, I can tell you from a context of North America, at least, because this is where I am, is that if the word compassion feels strong, maybe it is, but I can tell you what the trends are. Right now, the most important thing on the CEO's mind is the employee well-being. And it is not just about, we used to be, workplace well-being. This is about financial and emotional and psychological, like the amount of mental health challenges that we're going to have coming out of this pandemic could be quite high. Even relationships, because we're not seeing each other as much as we did. Like this is deep, like you said. And then the second piece is Addie, I'm going to be honest with you, right? Like empathy is probably the word we would have used, but it doesn't start with a C.
Yeah,
Right?
that's a good solution.
If you look at
But
the term, like of what compassion is, like,
yeah, of
isn't this what
course.
the world is missing?
I think that COVID made us understand how human we are and
Yeah,
how connected we are. And I love the fact that what you're saying is like, it's not the fact that they will be will work harder and they will collaborate better and they'll have the same results as before COVID. What you're describing is really understanding who is working for you and who is the employee that you need to just to make him connected to the other people around him.
yeah,
And right now everybody's so like in the past we talked about silos between business units, and now we're siloed between entities and people within these units, so it's much harder.
yeah.
And the implications is so everybody feels that, I would say. So it really makes sense that compassion would be part of what we're talking about, even if it's not doing well for the planet, or doing giving money to charity, or thinking about people who are misfortunate. I think that compassion is something that, for me as a person, is something that I think that as a kid was not really obvious. Just
Yeah.
when I grew up, I understood the impact of what is compassion to what you're doing to everyone around you. I think so. That's why this word really resonated with me. And I'm so happy that CEOs are thinking about it, because when you're thinking about CEOs, the first thing that would come to my mind is keeping the company flourishing and successful, making as much money as before. How can we leverage this change to make more money, so forth. So I'm very happy to hear about that, what you're saying, right?
Yeah, and I take it to a broader level. Like the company, we called it the now of work. Why? Because we've been talking about this future of work for so long, and the future is now. Well, when you start to unpack it, Addie, like this, now we get a little more philosophical. Well, I don't know if it's philosophical, but let's look back 50, 60, 100 years even. We were in the industrial age. And like you said, what was the goal in life? Well, maybe not in life, but the goals were shareholder value, right? Like that's what would drive the organization. And it brought some great things, globalization, the supply chain change. Like this was some good things as we were evolving as a global economy and as people. Well, the sad part is that now in that context, people started to say, okay, so now what is success? Is my title? Is my compensation? Is my pension? Like all these things that were material. So when you say, so now, it's starting to compassion, whether that was something you grew up with or not, my view is this, is that it was always inside of us. But as we went through this evolution of the industrial age mindset, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, create widgets, create a title, make as much money as you can, we lost sight of who we are. And so I think what COVID has done is we call this habit discontinuity. It's like, this profound event has happened worldwide. We've stopped to start to think, wait a minute, is it working the way it used to? And we never had that push before. So I'm not naive. I know that not every board out there and other shareholders saying it's all about inflation and we got to make more money, more money. I am not naive to know that's still true, but I think it's going to make a shift. And I think it's going to be a bottom-up societal shift where we're going to really challenge those old industrial age mindsets and say, wait a minute, inside of us is compassion. Inside of us is this need to be social and get along and have our communities, et cetera, that we're starting to be lost.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I want to just show you that David is enjoying our discussion. Saying thank you, David Wasserman. Thank you for joining us. And one more thing I want to talk to you is like, how is the change in work in general it's just accelerated through COVID. The fact that your employees working less for each company, so they're changing all the time. The fact they are less obligated to work with you for a long time or go from role to role within the company. Many of them just leave to a better company if they feel like it.
Yep.
And the connection between what was the employer or the company and this employee was much tighter in the past. And we see more people moving faster, going to be self-employed, going to be freelancers. Many of the gig economy is changing, right? So how do you see that impacting, and even much more right now with COVID, and how will organization handle it?
So everything you suggested, you just said, I think probably going to stick to a pretty great degree, actually. And it goes back again to that old industrial age. Why did we stay with companies so long? Because we had a pension attached to it, or we were about security, or that the world didn't change very fast. So we could have that same job for 30 years and retire. Well, that's just not the world we live in. At some point, the world has to be awoken to that. Jumping job wasn't a millennial thing. This is about many generations saying, I want experiences, right? And why would I get stuck with one? It's like, do you marry the first person you meet? Like, much of the world doesn't believe that, not all. But anyway, when I think of COVID, there's a couple of things that are going to happen. The hybrid and contingent workforce and distributed workforce is here to stay. Like, we're in a digital knowledge economy. Why would you limit yourself to people who can come into the office? Like, you just wouldn't do that. So that here to stay.